Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a brand new video. So I mentioned in my last vlog that I was going to be making a cake for a charity event, and I'm really excited about it. So in this video I'm just going to be sharing with you how I'm making the cake, how I'm decorating it, so on and so forth. I also mentioned that I'm going to be donating the majority of the AdSense of this video to the organisation that is running the fundraiser. The charity is called Newbies and the fundraiser is for a little girl who has a life-limiting condition. This little girl reminded me so much of Avery, and I'm really happy to be able to kind of give back to a lot of the kind of organisations that help me. It was a while ago now that I did something like this. You guys might remember a couple of years ago I shared Avery's story on how she got her brain injury, and I donated a huge chunk of the AdSense from that video to the Grand Appeal, which is a charity that supports Bristol Children's Hospital and helps with a lot of things, housing the parents of the children that are in ICU, providing cot beds for parents to stay with their children, toys on Christmas, all sorts like that. But I did a donation to them from that video, and in this video I'm really excited to be able to donate to this organisation because I've heard a lot about it and it sounds really inspiring, and I do like to give back where I can. So they reached out to me to ask if I wanted to donate a cake to their fundraiser, and without hesitation I accepted. I'm really looking forward to it. So bee-themed cakes seem to be really on trend at the moment, and I thought with the name of the charity it would be a really good time to kind of have a practice and play with the design and make it on trend. So I did a little design of my kind of inspiration. This is kind of what I want the cake to look like. It is just a guide really. I know what I'm doing, I know kind of what ingredients I'm using, how I'm going to be doing these decorations, but I have no idea how the end product is going to come out, so we'll do it together. Today is baking day, and I feel like you guys have seen me do so many cakes now. I don't really need to give you a step-by-step on how I make them, but I am essentially making a plain vanilla sponge today. So I have my flour, my caster sugar, my eggs, my butter, and I'm basically using 250 grams of each, including the eggs. I weigh them out of the shell. I just feel like the cake always turns out much fluffier that way, and I like to use my stand mixer when I make layer cakes because I feel like really getting the opportunity to kind of fluff up the butter and the sugar again just helps with the lift of the cake. So it's my same procedure for a regular sponge cake. I'm just going to cream the butter and sugar, add the eggs one by one, then the vanilla, then the flour, and then I will pop them in the oven. I still kind of adapt my sort of low and slow policy, so I will probably bake the cakes at around 150. I'd imagine they'll probably take an hour, maybe a little bit more. My oven tends to not be as hot as other ovens I've used before, which in one way is good because it helps keep the moisture of things and it tends to not burn things on the outside before they're cooked on the inside, which I really like, but it is still kind of a learning curve on how I'm using it. That's the thing with ovens, they're never the same and you have to relearn how to use it every time you use a new one. And we've only lived in this house for a few months, so I'm still getting used to it, but I'm gonna crack on and get these cake layers baked. So I am just sat here editing this footage, and I have realised that once again a lot of my footage has just gone missing. I have no idea where it's gone, and the last time I tried to find missing footage I ended up falling down a rabbit hole that took ages and it got me nowhere, so I'm not even going to bother trying. You missed me finishing baking the cakes. All I did after what you saw was add the rest of the eggs, the vanilla and the flour, pop them in the oven. I think they ended up taking about an hour and 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer at 150, but like I said, my oven tends to not be quite as hot as other ovens I've had in the past. One thing I did want to mention, because it is a really good tip that I found online, is when the cakes are finished baking, instead of putting them on a cooling rack, flip the tin upside down onto a piece of baking paper and leave them to cool that way. For some reason, well, not for some reason, it's quite obvious, but it just locks in the moisture, so the cakes end up being much more moist and fluffy and really nice. And it also flattens the top of the cake, so you end up wasting less cake because you're not cutting as much off to level it. I thought that was a really, really good tip. What you also have missed, because this footage has gone missing too, is me making the ganache. So this cake is frosted with white chocolate ganache, and basically it is just 3 parts white chocolate to 1 part double cream or heavy cream if you're in the USA, and I just melted it by doing short bursts in the microwave and stirring it in between and then allowing it to cool. So yeah, sorry that you guys missed that. It's really, really, really annoying, but I can't go back and remake the cake, so I'm just gonna have to make do with my explanation. So the ganache is pretty much at the right consistency now, and I have everything I need. I have a 10-inch cake board. Normally I wouldn't need this one big for a 6-inch cake. A 8-inch cake board would have been fine, or cake drum should I say, but this is what I have, so this is what I'm going to use, plus it fits the boxes that I have as well, so I'm fine with that. I've got my turntable. I got this on Amazon. I really love it. It actually came in a big set of lots of different things that actually came in really handy. I've got my simple syrup, which I will use to soak each cake layer. This is just equal parts granulated sugar and boiling water with a little bit of vanilla in it for flavour. I've got my cake leveler, which I actually prefer to the one I got on Temu because it goes higher. This came in a set with the turntable, so that's what I'm going to use to level and halve the cakes. And I've got one of the cake tins that I use to bake the cakes, and inside I've just got some acetate. I saw this trick on YouTube actually. I watched George's Cakes and she uses this trick, so I'm gonna stack the layers and fill the layers in this and then pop that in the freezer, and hopefully it should make it nice and straight. I'm also going to be filling with raspberry jam because I think white chocolate and raspberry are a really nice combination. So for now my first job is to level and half these cake layers. So they're looking pretty good. I think they turned out really, really well, but my 2 cake tins aren't exactly the same size, so they are slightly different in size, but I should be able to work with that. I don't need to take too much off the top because the trick I did putting them upside down onto parchment paper flattened them out pretty well, but I just want them at the same height, and I kind of just want to get rid of the sort of crust off of the top. So I'm going to start with the shortest cake so I can use it as a guide, which is actually this one. It's ever so slightly shorter than that one. I've put my cake leveler to 3, which just skims the top. So this should make it nice and flat, and I am just going to cut off the top. And then I've just got a spare bowl here, and I'm just gonna pop that in there. And the great thing about scraps is you get to actually taste the cake. So that looks really, really nice and level. So before I half this cake, I am just going to do exactly the same with this one, and then these 2 layers will be exactly the same height. And because this one was slightly taller, there will be a little bit more cake that comes off with this one. I really hate doing this part because it feels like you're wasting cake, but honestly it does make a difference having straight and even layers. So now these 2 are perfectly even, and now I've dropped the leveler down a couple of notches, and I am just going to slice this cake in half and then do exactly the same with the other one. So now I have 4 level cake layers. So this is where it all gets quite systematic. So I'm going to start with my first cake layer. I'm going to leave the parchment paper on the bottom just to stop it from drying out. And I'm just going to push it in to the tin, soak it with sugar syrup, and then start with the filling. So I've just got my ganache in a piping bag. I'm just putting a little dollop onto the sponge, and then I'm going to spread this out just to kind of form a barrier between the sponge and then the jam. And then I am going to just form a bit of a ring on the outside of the sponge, and that will act as a bit of a dam for the jam. And I'm not gonna lie, it's looking a little bit messy. It's making me think that maybe the white chocolate isn't set quite enough, but we're rolling with it now. Now I'm just adding the jam in the middle, and I'm just going to be careful not to go too close to the edges with it because I don't want this to seep out the sides, almost like a little bit of a surprise in the middle of the cake. That's the way I like to think of it anyway. Then just pop on another layer and then soak this as well. The top and the bottom of the cake are the two bottoms of the sponge. That again just helps getting it nice and flat. This might actually be where this ganache being a little bit runnier might help me, because this cake is slightly smaller. I am just going to try and fill the outside, and hopefully that will seep down past the acetate to try and close up the gap a little bit. And then I'm just doing the same again, and I will do this for each layer. And for the last layer, I'm just going to soak it before I pop it on. Good thing it's the last layer too, because I've just run out of sugar syrup. And then I'm going to flip it upside down so the bottom of the cake is on the top. And then once it's in place, I'm just going to make sure the cake is as level and straight as possible. This is probably where a spirit level would come in handy. And then I'm going to pop this in the freezer until the ganache is fully set and it's nice and cold. I've just taken the cake out of the freezer, and I'm not going to lie, I've never done this before, so I am literally just winging it now. So I'm just going to take the greaseproof paper off of the top of the cake, and I'm just going to lift it out of the tin. The tin does have a loose bottom, so it's easy enough to get out. And I'm just going to remove the acetate. And now all I'm going to do is spread a bit of the ganache on top of the cake, which will essentially be the bottom of the cake, and I am going to secure it to the board. And then flip it over, and now I will just adjust it so that it is central. Then I can remove the greaseproof paper from the other side. So on my turntable, I've just got a piece of non-slip mat. This is just the shelf liner stuff that you can get in the shops. I think I got this from B&M, but it does a really good job at stopping the cake from slipping. A wet kind of bit of kitchen roll does the same job, but this is obviously reusable and more cost effective in the long run. So now I can pop my cake on the turntable. So now it's time to frost the cake, and because it's been in the freezer, I might even get away with not crumb coating it. So what I'm going to do now is just fill in all the gaps that weren't covered when I put the frosting in between the layers, and then I'm going to even all of this out, starting with the top. And I'm going to try and work fairly quickly because the cake is cold. The ganache is going to set fairly quickly. The ganache is pretty solid now because the cake was so cold. So what I'm going to do before I try and smooth all this out is just try and take off some of this excess on the corners, and then I will try to smooth it out and then finish off the design I had in mind. So now that the cake is pretty much kind of in the shape I want it, and it's all sort of level and frosted, I want to smooth it out. So what I have down here, it's just a baking dish full of boiling water, and I'm gonna use that to keep warming up my side scraper, and then the heat should slightly melt the chocolate to allow me to smooth it out. I'm just switching over to a different side scraper just so I can actually fully fit it into the hot water, and this process is quite tedious. It's a lot of sort of back and forth and round, but slowly it should all start coming together. That is the hope anyway. So I feel like I've probably got this as smooth as I'm going to get it. I'm not going to put this back in the fridge because it seems to be setting itself pretty well, and I'm going to carry on with the decorations. So my plan is to try and decorate some of the cake that looks like pieces of honeycomb. So I've got some yellow fondant, and I bought this on Amazon. This is like an impression mat. It is food safe. It's from the brand PME and it's like a honeycomb design. Again, never done this before. This is just an idea that's popped into my head and it may turn out horribly, but I'm gonna give it a go. I think I'm just gonna do a few small pieces instead of wrapping the entire like bottom with it, because I've never done fondant before. I don't know how it's gonna go and I really don't want to set myself up for failure, but fingers crossed this will turn out okay. So now I'm just gonna continue to follow my design, and I've got these little bee sugar decorations. I found these again on Amazon. Comes with flowers, but I don't think I'm using the flowers. I'm just gonna use the bees. And I've also got the tiniest little bit of melted dark chocolate here, and like I said, I'm just gonna follow my design. I'm gonna do a few little curly whirlies, I suppose, and then stick the bees on. And then afterwards I'm going to finish it off with some gold luster dust. That is why I have left the kind of edges a bit rough. I'm going to coat them in gold luster dust and also detail some of the honeycomb in gold luster dust as well, just to give it a little bit extra, I suppose. So at risk of doing too much and ruining the cake, I think I'm going to stop there. I'm really happy with it actually, and I hope the lady that runs the organisation really likes it too. And there we are, my bee themed donation cake. I am really happy with it, and it was definitely fun to try out some new techniques and play with different ingredients like fondant that I've never used before. I dread to think what it would be like to frost an entire cake with fondant, but I had lots of fun making it and I hope you enjoyed watching along. So I'm going to be popping this cake in the fridge now, ready to be collected. And yeah, I hope that lots of people buy raffle tickets and raise lots of money for this little girl. So like I said guys, the majority of the AdSense from this video, probably the AdSense for the next week or so, because that's usually when the majority of an AdSense comes in on a video, will be going to the organisation that are taking this cake from me. So please, if you have any spare time, just let this video run in the background, run through the ad. Let's raise as much money as possible for this organisation, and I'm really pleased to be able to give back. So with that said, I will see you guys in another normal vlog soon. Bye guys.